So welcome everybody to our little talk about Dragon's Dogma 2's performance. And that the issue is bigger than Dragon's Dogma 2, it's all next gen games. So if you spend a lot of time online, then you probably noticed already that a lot of next gen games are having performance issues. The thing with performance is that it's being caused by a variety of things right now. Some of these things are as follows. CPUs are causing bottlenecks in next gen games. The wrong requirements and hardware are being recommended. Game developers are making games so demanding they are not running properly on the hardware. Hardware companies are making huge leaps in performance. High-end graphics cards are being paired with CPUs that are just too weak, simply because FPS does not actually represent the real performance of the graphics cards. And your graphics card can get high FPS and not be fully utilized. But the actual problem is a bit more difficult to pinpoint, since it's not just the hardware, but it might be even software that is causing the bottlenecks. And the main culprit might just be our good old friend DirectX 12 trying to balance the hardware. Since DirectX 12 has always had issues with CPUs in the past. So ways I have found to get around this bottleneck is to put your graphics on higher settings, but also use a much bigger CPU. But the actual way to solve a lot of problems with CPUs is actually to use a smaller graphics card. So what we need now from tech tubers are that you need to combine much bigger CPUs with smaller graphics cards. And then run the pass mark benchmark so that you can get the 3D value. If your CPU is bottlenecking your graphics card, then the 3D value will be lower. And once we get all the 3D values from every CPU, we'll be able to match graphics cards more easily. So what we need is the 3D values from the CPUs and then the 3D values from the GPUs, and then we can see which ones matches up better. So what I am saying is that we need to find other ways of benchmarking to match hardware, because FPS is not working for this. So something interesting I found with Dragon's Dogma 2, when putting the graphics higher, you can get rid of the bottleneck, but you also need to be running between 30 and 35 FPS. So if this is actually a software issue, I don't know. So that actually has to be investigated. Because I'm sure that everyone can see if you have a RTX 4090 and you have to load it up fully with graphics and then also run between 30 and 35 FPS to get rid of your bottleneck, people's definitely not going to be happy. And my opinion on this graphics card is that it's too powerful and there is no CPU in the world that can actually run that graphics card without a bottleneck. So this is something that we will need to investigate, because it doesn't seem like a full-on hardware bottleneck, but maybe a software bottleneck. So lastly, if you've been watching this video and you've been keeping your eye on the graphics utilization, you want that utilization to be full. And something that I found, it seems like MSI Afterburner and these programs are not giving the proper feedback. And what I mean by this is that it's constantly showing that your CPU is only getting used 50%, but then you're running into a bottleneck and it caps out here at 45 FPS. These are all things that tech tubers now need to recognize. That is, if you want to solve the problems that the people are having with their games. So I think the best way is if we all come together and try and problem solve to see how we can figure this out. So that's all from me, Supreme Scorpion. See you in the future.